just go off. Number 5. What?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll find a seat, please, we can begin this evening's meeting. Well, thank you all for being here. It's always nice. The members and I were talking about how nice it is to see the seats filled as opposed to empty, since we're doing the people's business here, not our own. Welcome to this evening's Taft City Council Successor Agency Joint Regular Meeting, as well as a special meeting that was agendized for Tuesday, January 16th, 2018. As a courtesy to all, please turn off or silence your cell phones. That way nobody gets embarrassed. We're going to begin this evening's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead, and followed by an invocation from Jim Stegall of the Community Christian Center. If you would stand and join us, please. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Father, indeed, we come together tonight in thanks for your love for us, for your care for us, for your protection for us. Father, as we gather together tonight, we pray that your hand be in the fellowship and the sharing that we have with each other. Pray that your hand be in decisions that are made, that altogether what is done is what is best for the good of our city. We'll give you the thanks, we'll give you the praise, and we pray it in the name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks, sir. All right, Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Knorr.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill. Here. Councilmember Bryant.
Here.
Councilmember Cryer.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
All right. First item on this evening's agenda is going to be a study session, a presentation on cannabis. We are fortunate to have the supervising deputy district attorney in charge of the gang unit or gang prosecutions, Cynthia Zimmer, who is going to share a bunch of information with us. If you would, please, Cynthia.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Madam Clerk, Mr. City Attorney, I assume, and City Manager, and members of the audience. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm very excited to get to talk to you about cannabis and violence in the dispensaries as I have experienced it. I've been a prosecutor for 33 years, and I've had the honor of supervising the gang unit at the DA's office for the last 11. In my role there, I oversee all gang-related prosecutions in Kern County. And in doing that, I work closely with detectives from the Bakersfield Police Department, specifically from the gang unit, the homicide unit, and the narcotics unit. And those are the units that are primarily involved in the investigation of gang crime that has been perpetrated in and around cannabis dispensaries. And as such, because of my work in the gang unit at the DA's office and overseeing these crimes, and my work with the law enforcement, specifically the BPD and to a lesser extent the Sheriff's Department, I have quite a bit of experience with cannabis. I'd like to talk to you briefly about gangs in Kern County, just to give you a brief background of what is going on with gang members. Gang members, that is street gang members, are in the business of committing crime. They commit crimes every day. If they're not committing crimes, they're talking about the crimes they committed yesterday, or thinking about the crimes and talking about them and conspiring to commit crimes tomorrow. And what are the primary activities, the primary criminal activities of criminal street gangs in Kern County? It is not playing video games, ladies and gentlemen. They are serious crimes. These gangsters are out for serious business. Their crimes are murder, attempted murder, drive-by shootings, robberies, residential burglaries, carjacking, narcotic sales, weapons violation, and witness intimidation. So they're perpetrating violence upon others or stealing in a violent way in order to finance the gang. We have two primary gangs that are not totally ethnic related, they're more territorial related, but we call these African American gangs or Hispanic gangs. There are three primary African American gangs in Kern County. Those are Crips. The Crips and the Bloods came to Kern County originally. They feuded. The Crips were dominant, and then after the Crips were dominant, they split into three distinct groups, and they are all rivals now to each other. There are the East Side Crips, the Country Boy Crips, and the West Side Crips. They are territory based. The Bloods are still around, but they're not very territorially based. These are their territorial areas or boundaries. And this is, I don't have a very good pointer, but oops. I'll just, the line to the left is Highway 99. That's, as you can see, I think most of you can probably see that. That is 58 running east and west. And the line that says 204, that's Union Avenue. And then Martin Luther King and Cottonwood is the area here. So I think I'll just walk over and show you this because we're going to orient to this later on. This is 99, Union, and Martin Luther King and Cottonwood. Valley Plaza is so we have the East Side Crips, which is our biggest, most dominant gang, up in the top right along Martin Luther King Boulevard. That is kind of their stronghold, and Union Avenue. Below that, south of 58, are the Country Boy Crips. The biggest rival to the east side is the Country Boy Crips. And then the West Side Crips, which we also call our downtown Crips. These are the area around the courthouse, around Chester Avenue, and the downtown area, if you know Bakersfield. So those are their general areas, and they are very territorially based. We also have Hispanic gangs. Hispanic gangs are very closely tied to prison gangs. There are the Norteños in California and the Sureños. The Norteños I have there in red. The Sureños are in blue. The dividing line is around Delano. That's why we see a lot of violence, Norteño-Sureño violence in Delano. But south of Delano, all gangs down to the Mexican border are Sureño gangs. When they are in prison, they are together because they are part of the Mexican mafia. When they are out of prison, they are Sureño gangs, but they fight each other. So in prison, they get along. Out of prison, they fight each other. So the Norteños in prison are affiliated with the Nuestra Familia. And if you see numbers around like graffiti, they affiliate with the color red and the number 14. And Sureños affiliate with the Mexican mafia in prison. But out of prison, they are Sureño gangs. And that's what we have in Kern County, except for one gang in Delano, we have Sureño gangs. And this is important as it relates to pot shops. In Bakersfield, the Hispanic gangs, we have the Barrio Okie, Colonia, Loma, East Side, and West Side Bakers. Those are our Bakersfield gangs. And then on the outskirts in Kern County, we have Lamont, Arvin. We also have a Weed Patch gang. MIFA is in Delano, in McFarland. And then we have the Delano Norteños and Sureños. In Bakersfield, these are the territorial areas of the Bakersfield Hispanic gangs. 99 would just be a little bit left off the chart, but that the 204 there, that is Union. They share territories with the black gangs. They actually share territories. But as you can see, the Barrio Bakers are downtown. They are the largest, most violent gang, and they share territory with the black gang that is the most large in number, and that is the East Side Crips. So that's about the same area there. And then we have the Loma, which means hill, that's up by Bakersfield College, and then the South Side Bakers, which is out on South H in those areas. With that in mind, I'd like to talk about marijuana dispensaries in Kern County.
What's the number of gang members total in our Kern County area?
There are thousands of gang members in Kern County. It is difficult to pinpoint the exact number because gang members are so often in and out of prison on parole, and that it's hard for us to predict how many new ones are coming up. We usually don't see them till they're about 18, and that can be thousands. The number I heard at one time was about 6,000, but it kind of depends, and then it depends on how active they are.
5,000 is up
throughout
and down
Kern County,
that.
at least.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Within the city of Bakersfield, zoning laws never really provided for the legality of pot shops. They were never legal there. The zoning laws never allowed for it. But in 2013, the City Council of Bakersfield made it more specific, and they actually addressed this and outlawed marijuana dispensaries. However, that didn't stop the illegality of marijuana dispensaries and from them operating. And what the city of Bakersfield did for a number of years was try to go the civil route by serving notices on the pot shops, requiring them to stop operating. And that wasn't very effective. And finally, Jeannie Gennaro and some of the narcotics officers from the Bakersfield Police Department, she's our city attorney, began a different method. And there were 7 illegal dispensaries in the city of Bakersfield in October of 2017. And so they began a criminal, because it is criminal, it's a misdemeanor, but it's criminal to operate an illegal pot shop. And so they began an operation, and they shut down 68 out of 70 of those narcotics operations in a 2-month period. And by December, they shut down 68 out of 70, and only about 5 have come back, and they're working on those since that time. There was a tremendous amount of intelligence gathered during the process. We knew a lot about what was going on in marijuana dispensaries by the cases that the arrests we made and the cases we prosecute, the informants we talked to, the wiretaps we listened to. So we had a tremendous amount of information about what was going on in these marijuana dispensaries. But the arrests of going in, serving search warrants, seeing what was behind the counter, and doing that type of information was very, very helpful in what the Bakersfield Police Department was able to see. They're run by gang members. That's what they were able to see. Gang members with felony convictions. They are running these marijuana dispensaries, these illegal dispensaries. Other drugs, not just marijuana, are sold in these dispensaries. They're selling cocaine, both in and around the business. Of the search warrants that they executed when they went in to shut those pot shops, in over 80% of the shops, they found firearms. Firearms in the shops that were stolen and illegal. And they saw lots of cash, up to $20,000 of cash. And this is a cash business. Dispensaries are not located in the Bakersfield Country Club area or in Seven Oaks or out in Rosedale. Within these areas, they're located in gang territories. Unfortunately, they're located in areas of town which are the most impoverished. They are frequented by gang members. Gang members use pot. They use pot all the time. All the time. It's part of their daily deal. Gang members use pot. They are the most regular customers in marijuana dispensaries. If you conduct surveillance of a dispensary, you are going to see people with tattoos on their face and their arms representing their gangs that are in their late teens and early 20s. I'm not saying that everyone that uses pot is a criminal. That is not the case, as you can have read and seen, that many people with prescriptions, now it's a little different, but with prescriptions before, were not criminals. But this is what we see. The majority of the people, the customers, are gang members seeking marijuana. Active gang members consume marijuana daily. They commit crimes using marijuana. They have marijuana on their person when they are arrested. And there are a number of murders that occur in and around pot shops. It is a place where gang members go and they see each other and they are rivals, and violence is exacted upon each other in those pot shops. It is a place where a country boy will see an East Sider, or a West Sider will see an East Sider, or with Hispanic gangs. And that is a place that draws that type of customer to a location, and violence often occurs. This is a map, and I hope I can orient you as to the number of the pot shops that the cannabis dispensaries in 2017 within the city of Bakersfield. If you can see where 99 is, the majority of those dispensaries are located east of 99. 7 or 8 of them only are in West 99, and several of those are in areas that are in the Southwest. But I don't see any up in the Rosedale area, and in some of the areas there where the marijuana dispensaries are in the Southwest are in apartment-heavy areas. But the majority of those marijuana dispensaries, the location of them were along the Chester and Union Avenue corridor in East Side Crip and West Side Crip and close to Country Boy Crip territory, Vario Baker territory. So they are located within the areas that are close to gang territory. And I wanted to tell you that in 2017, the Bakersfield Police Department had 52 calls for service. That means people were reporting crime within pot shops 52 times that were inside. In the buffer zone, we call it, that's within 300 feet of marijuana dispensaries, there were 1,122 calls for service by the Bakersfield Police Department to the buffer area around marijuana dispensaries. That means someone was reporting crime 1,100 times in that area around there. Furthermore, in 2016, there were 1,500 calls for service. Now remember, in November and December, the amount of marijuana dispensaries were greatly reduced because of the operation. There were 60 calls for service and 1,500 of them within 300 yards. 300 feet.
3 to 4 a day, every day, on the average.
1,500 divided by 365 days.
It's a little over 4 a day, that's correct.
Correct. So that, as you can imagine, put a burden, an additional burden upon the police department.
And risk.
What kinds of crimes besides homicides do we see in marijuana dispensaries? We see robberies of the stores. We see robberies by gang members, of the store employees and of the patrons in the stores, and specifically harm exacted upon the security guards that are working within the stores. And we saw 9 arsons. They're burning each other down. 9 arsons a couple of years ago. Pot shops were being burned down and were the subject of arson. And also I wanted to tell you, very often they don't call. It's not like we see every crime that is committed in a marijuana dispensary because they don't call. They're illegal. When they call for the police, they run the risk of that. So we're reporting to you what we actually know from calls. And additionally, a huge problem is that in Hispanic gang neighborhoods, the Mexican mafia from the prisons require the criminal street gangs, the Sureños, to collect taxes. So in Hispanic neighborhoods, and the gang, if the pot shop is in a gang neighborhood, very often the Mexican mafia will require the criminal street gangs to go get taxes from these pot shops in order to enable them to stay in business. They have to pay taxes for protection. So we see a lot of crimes occurring when they go in to collect the taxes and the owner or the security guard doesn't want to, or they're reluctant, and oftentimes they pay the taxes and don't call, and sometimes violence occurs and they don't call.
Did they learn that from the state of California on collecting taxes, or how they learned that?
Strong arm.
I beg your pardon, I didn't really hear you. Was it a joke? Okay. But what happens if you don't, the concept of paying taxes is not new to the Mexican mafia. In order to sell drugs, illegal drugs, from houses, from street corners, the Mexican mafia requires criminal street gangs to collect taxes, and they get passed up to the bosses in
How does
prison.
that work on that? Are they like it's payments per household or a percentage of their income, or whatever they can get from each person?
You know what, the percentage of what happens, I guess they look at the overall how much cocaine or marijuana or whatever you're selling, and then they have a specific amount, and they collect from that, and if you don't pay, then you can be subject to violence. But that is a common
They're pretty
criminal street
efficient
gang.
then.
And then it's paid up in the prisons, and it helps finance the gangs. So there are some specific cases that I want to show you and talk about to demonstrate my point about some of the violence that we are seeing in Kern County, in Bakersfield specifically.
Before we get on those specific items, is this a Kern County problem, or the cities that do have pot shops, is this a typical problem?
Is it typical throughout the state of California?
For those
can't-
things that you're listing there.
I mean, those are some of the gang intelligence that we hear, that there are other places. What I know best because of my interaction with my
Right.
prosecutions and police. So I can't tell you that I am an expert, that
and you
I've
can't say
studied
anything
statewide.
about what's going on in Washington, Oregon, or Colorado that has
Oh, I
legalized.
mean, we've studied Colorado a little bit with the legality of pot shops, and we have some idea about that. But as far as criminal street gangs, that I am not sure.
Okay.
Okay, here are a few cases that I wanted to show you. I cannot talk to you about cases that are pending. These are cases that are completed. We have a number of cases that are pending, that are homicides, robberies, and they were committed by criminal street gang members both locally and from Los Angeles. There are other crimes that have been committed in and around pot shops that are not gang related, that will probably have additional statistics, but these are the ones that I am aware of as the overseer of gang related prosecutions. People of the state of California versus Aaron Burris. He was an East Side Crip, and he committed a double murder at the First Reliable Collective at 217 Chester. 217 Chester, that's just north of the Albertsons. It's that little business right back there, and on the left side of the screen, it's a little business that's the left side door was the Collective, the marijuana dispensary, and the right side was like a lingerie shop. This was a business that required you to be buzzed in. And so you had to go up and go into like a little foyer and be buzzed in. I've been inside here after the homicide. I walked through with the police department. And a 16-year-old prostitute went to the door and was buzzed in by the employee. You're not supposed to let juveniles in. And so she was able to get her way in, and they didn't see who was hiding behind her, and that was Aaron Burris. So he went in, the employee let the juvenile prostitute into the Collective. Burris came in behind her. He shot and killed a pimp that was actually in the Collective that was hanging out in there. Then he required the employee to go to the safe. The employee could not open the safe. Then he took him back behind the counter and required him to put the marijuana and Bunny into a bag, and then shot him in the head and killed him. This is all on video. And there's one thing I will tell you, that marijuana's dispensaries have very good video. So he and then the prostitute left them with the marijuana and the money. They were caught. There's some pictures from the press. There's another picture of here is the East Side Crip that worked in connection with this 16-year-old child that was a runaway from Southern California. And she was, they were both tried and convicted. And she was tried as an adult initially. So that was one of our first really heinous crimes. Here's another one, People versus Packard, Gage, and Thomas. Also East Side Crips, a crime that occurred at 521 H Street. Here is the dispensary. It's the one with the American flag flying. As you can see, there's a business on the left that is a business for Children's Head Start. So the marijuana dispensary was right next to that business, and this was a robbery, and it was a takeover robbery. And what a takeover robbery is it's different than what we call a note robbery. It's where people come in, they storm the business, they come in very quickly, they're armed with firearms, they scream, they yell, and they terrify people into compliance. So this was a takeover robbery of several East Side Crips. They came in with firearms. They threatened to kill. They beat the employees in the business. They shot off guns. The customer was bound with duct tape that was in the store at the time. A large amount of marijuana and cash was taken. They escaped, but the Bakersfield Police Department got on them quickly, and unfortunately there was a high-speed pursuit through the streets of Bakersfield. And the getaway car with the marijuana and the cash, and the gangsters were going on the wrong side of the road, going high speed, subjecting people in Bakersfield with further danger. And when the car was stopped, they found a loaded firearm, and eventually were able to apprehend these people, and they were convicted. Here's another example. This is People versus Miguel T. Miguel T. is a juvenile. Was tried as an adult. I could use his full name, but I'm not choosing to. He was an Okie Baker. Okie Baker is an area on Cottonwood and 58. That's their territorial boundary, and it's not far from the Green Hut Prescription, 247 South Union. A little green building there in the middle is the Green Hut Dispensary, and 16-year-old Miguel was at the dispensary. Since 16-year-old Miguel was at the dispensary. And he was there with some friends, and he was leaving, walking out to Union on foot. And some rival gang members from the Barrio were in a car, and they had been in the dispensary. And they were leaving in a car. And the victims, who were the Barrio, yelled out at him, "Where are you from?" Well, in gang world, there's no good answer to that question. There's no good answer. And Miguel responds, the Okie Baker. He walked up to the car, and Miguel ended up shooting into the car, killing one and wounding another. I have it on videotape. Where it will occur is up in the top part of the video, and you'll see the car go by, and Miguel, the shooter, will be on the right. And I see if I can get this to work. Oh, I think I'm going to have to. That's Miguel that's walking toward Union Avenue, and there's the victim. The driver of that car is going to die in about less than a minute. Where are you from? No good answer. Watch Miguel. Boom. Shoots and kills the man in the car, injures the passenger, runs to where his friends are, dives in the window, and they get away. So this is one of the examples of rival.
He
Would you
didn't
like to see it
flinch.
again? Would you like to see it again? Is that what you see? Couldn't see it? Oh no, I saw him. He didn't even flinch. No. Gunshots. That, most of us would dive, and he didn't flinch at all. And I know that this happens fast, so if anyone would like to see it again, I can back it up. But so anyway, they escaped, and the police eventually caught them, and he was prosecuted. But that is the type of interaction that we have with 16-year-olds and rival gang members in pot shops, because it is a place where they go quite often. Here's the car being investigated with the body the next day. So that is not that atypical. And here is the Reese, Kupis, Vincent, and Vincent case. The Southside Bakers went over to the Green Door Cafe at 801 South H. Here is a picture of the Green Door. And this is a dispensary located in Southside Baker territory. It's in the south end of town. And the four defendants, they are Southside Bakers, came into the dispensary. And the victim in there was the security guard, and he was a Southside Baker dropout. So the same gang, because it's very often there's gang violence. They attacked him. They severely beat him. Guns were fired. They didn't shoot him, but they beat him so badly. He was in the hospital a month, and he cannot remember what happened. But the point of this was they did rob the place of money and drugs, but they were taxing the Green Door for selling in their territory and also collecting taxes. That's what an inside of a pot shop looks like. Just to the left is the body on the ground before they got him out. And finally, the last example I wanted to show you is the People versus Gabriel Verdugo. He's an Okie Baker, and this is the murder by a security guard, not on a security guard, of the organization called E&J Marijuana Dispensary. So Verdugo is a security guard at this dispensary, and he decided to go out and do some advertising for the dispensary, and he went into bars in order to pass out cards for the marijuana dispensary. Mr. Verdugo was a felon, and he was the security guard at the pot shop. He went in and he got into a conversation with our victim, who was an Iraqi war veteran who was home, who worked for the Department of Human Services trying to help veterans who were coming home from Iraq. He was out with his friends in this bar, and Verdugo all of a sudden pulls out a gun after some sort of verbal discussion and executes the victim. He fled to Mexico, remained at large for 2 years before he was apprehended and extradited back to the United States for trial. We just finished this trial, convicted him of first-degree murder. This is also on videotape. Now, why would I put this one in there? It didn't happen at a pot shop, but he was the security guard at the pot shop that was trying to drum up business. So here is the video of this homicide. Oh, there's a picture of him flashing gang signs. It's kind of hard to see. Those are the cards that he was distributing in and around, trying to get people to come to the marijuana dispensary. And it's dark. This picture is dark. And the killer, Mr. Verdugo, okay, there's 4 guys sitting in a bar. He is the one at the top that's kind of the biggest guy. He'll stand up in a minute, and he shoots the one closest to him, who is our victim, the war veteran. Okay, that's really darker, sorry, than I'd hoped it would be. But as you can see, this is just a few cases, and I hope I haven't taken too much time. I wanted to be able to give you an example of what we're facing. These prosecutions, the investigations by law enforcement is so costly, and the prosecutions for us are so costly on what we do in these cases. The prosecution of that case took a month in trial. He had a lawyer, court time, all that, just from our end. The violence that we see occurs against customers, against the people in the store, the employees, and also people outside the stores and people on the streets. I wanted to tell you that we in law enforcement call marijuana dispensaries gang ATMs. Okay? I mean, I know that and I'm not trying to be funny, but that's what we call it, gang ATMs, because that's where they know they can always go to get money and drugs. So that's my presentation. I hope I have enlightened you what we work very, very hard in the gang unit to do at the Kern County DA's office to do the best we can to stop this kind of stuff and put people who commit these heinous crimes in prison. So do you have any questions?
I have a few questions, and I think you may be a fine attorney or county. I think you'd be great with your program. But here in Taft, we're not really going to have any dispensaries here in our ordinance. So that's kind of out. But I think kind of talking more about the commercial grow and the having the processing of it, we call it manufacturing of it. Have there been any cases where gangs infiltrated legitimate commercial grow and the manufacturing of the marijuana as far as that?
It's been so the law has just passed, which authorized that, but we don't have much experience with that. I think maybe there are illegal grows going on, but we have not had experience yet with any type of commercial grows that we know of where gang members have infiltrated and done that. We do have experience where our gangsters have gone outside to rural areas to commit robberies and that kind of thing. I know you don't really have a Hispanic and black gang problem here, but we have cases where our Crips will go to Lamont or Arvin and that kind of thing and commit crimes. But I don't have experience personally with the takeover robberies or infiltration of commercial grows.
I had opportunity to see a couple of invitation. Went to one in Cathedral City, where they have a armed guards there, and also in Coachella in the manufacturing of it, and how it was run and how professional. It's been there for. They had it's one of the first ones that got legalized, I guess, to sell. To do it, and it seemed like it was well run and everything, but we're having a discussion. Is we definitely don't want a dispensary. We know there's issues with that and everything, but with things coming in our town with source of income and taxes and jobs and things that's happening in our town, a lot of us are looking what's the best of two evils. There's
Well, I'm not
issues
really
there.
here to advocate one way or the other. I was asked merely to talk about violence with gangs, and well, I don't have
Well, you mentioned that they go out there and collect taxes and stuff. It kind of intrigues me a little bit. I always thought when the government did it, so they're actually, they're breaking the law with you. Wouldn't
they're extorting
wouldn't
money.
a RICO factor would be easy for them to prosecute them on a RICO for extortion and collecting money, from the use that law to.
Well, RICO is a federal prosecution, and the federal government can do that, but we get more time in state court prosecuting people for homicide than they get on RICO.
So you couldn't pass that information, find out who's doing what with the information with the different gang members to the FBI here and a local FBI.
Oh, of course. And we have, and the FBI is prosecuting on a RICO statute some of our West Side Crips that were recently arrested in a recent wiretap. They took the RICO stuff and most of the cases that involve drugs, and we at the Kern County DA's office took the violence.
Mm-hmm.
The violence carries life.
It seems like in our area, I don't know much of a marijuana problem here. There is some marijuana. I'm not going to say there isn't, but it's more of a meth and pill problems in here. Opiates and stuff. That's our biggest problem we have in this area here.
Yes.
On here. And we need to control that. And then marijuana is the same thing, but the law says now it's legal, so there's not much you can do. But when you manufacture and the processing of it, it doesn't stay in our community. It leaves our community. It leaves our county, I believe, and goes to other areas. To me, it seems like Sacramento, on the coast, and L.A. and San Francisco, they create all these issues and stuff. They have it. I mean, I wouldn't mind making it, but let them use it. Let them go ahead and deal with the problem it creates over there. Maybe they might change the law back to normalcy again, make California sane again, basically. Because I agree, drugs is bad, but I do corn that the manufacturing and the growing part could be a legit at this time, but there's a federal issue involved with it. It's illegal, but I do have some concerns, but I'm kind of looking at that, kind of leaning on that direction.
Well, Councilmember Cryer, that's totally your decision. I'm merely here to present to you the violence that we
Right.
see because it's a cash business, and that is very attractive for gang members. So,
Yeah. But I'm not disagreeing with you. I admire what you're doing. I admire
thank you.
all that stuff, and I think you make a great, DA, in our town here. We got to do what we have to do, but there is some concerns I have on that would dump in our laps from Sacramento, basically. Unfortunately. But that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you, sir.
Councilman Miller, did you have any questions?
I was shocked to learn that most all the pot dispensaries that were illegal were gang related and gang run. I never had heard that before. So it's not like some Silicon Valley investors investing in a pot shop. I mean, it's not lily white like that. I mean, it's,
Well, these are the illegal ones.
yeah.
It's illegal in the city of Bakersfield, so that's what.
No,
you have.
I understand that. So I hadn't realized that it was mostly gang related. Of course, hopefully, and I think the Chiefs run most of. If we had any gang members, we'd run them mostly out of here. But we don't see that kind of problem. But it's apparently a huge problem in Bakersfield. And so you're down to a couple of pot shops that are illegal and working on closing those too.
That's within the city.
Yes.
The county is a different issue. But within the city, They've closed down 68 of them, and they have about 5 back, so they're working on those.
So since January 1, you know how many have opened up legally? Well,
It's
you can't.
it's
That's right.
illegal.
It's illegal. in Bakersfield.
It's illegal
Can't
still,
go-
yeah.
can't- Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Councilman Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'll be short in saying this, but I think it validated our decision not to even consider dispensaries based on what you presented here, and in all intents and purposes, this is a very similar demographic that we have here in the city of Taft to where those instances occurs. That's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think the thing that I'm curious about is how you think this might change. Now that marijuana is going to be so-called more mainstream, do you think there's going to be changes? I was surprised that these marijuana shops are just popping up. I mean, how long does it take to get one to close? I mean, a business can just pop up anywhere and suddenly they're there until they can't be there anymore?
Squatter rights.
Squatters' rights?
Well, they can pop up, and then there's a lot of money involved.
Yes.
So they can go rent something else and move. But since they have, there's a little bit of a difference between you put a cease and desist order and serve with someone with a civil type paper, rather than the law enforcement going in with a search warrant and taking it criminally and looking what's behind the counter and how much money and arresting people. And so that's where it has been effective for the city of Bakersfield in changing it and eliminating the pop shops to get it from 70 to 68.
Now, prior to them taking all the pot shops out, were there any pot shops that were actually considered legal, or were they all gang-related pot shops?
Well, they're not all gang-related pot shops. As far as it's not like gang members all own them, but they're somehow involved, whether they're employees or that type of thing. But there have been some legal ones in the county, the unincorporated county, but not in the city of Bakersfield.
Interesting. So do you see any differences are going to happen when they start having cultivation? What kind of things do you foresee with that?
It's speculation by all of us as far as what we see. I have heard law enforcement talk about they're concerned about if there's cultivation, that there'll be crime with regard to the cultivation, and that there could be takeovers, carjackings of the transport vehicles that take it away. But that's not something that I can stand here and talk to you, an expert, about. The violence that I prosecute is what I know about. Otherwise, I would just be probably speculating like the rest of you, about, it's a valuable product. People that are involved in that product want it. It's very valuable. So, we can speculate about what happened, but, you probably have to look at the statistics there yourself. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Is Bakersfield and Kern County considering ordinances against landlords? Like, I'm assuming most all these pot shops are rented buildings, or I don't believe the gang members own those buildings, do they? But I mean,
No, they rent them.
Would have you heard anything or know of any if they're punishing the landlord for renting to a business that's illegal?
Well, the DA's office is concerned with criminal violations, whether or not the
But if you
city
didn't
attorney.
if you didn't have landlords renting these pot shop people, you wouldn't have pot shops. I know it's
Yeah.
not that simple. But
Right. I guess that, what it is a crime if you aid and abet. If you are renting knowingly, I suppose I haven't seen any prosecutions of the landlords, but technically you could. If you are knowingly renting for something to be used as a criminal enterprise, you are just as guilty as an aider and abetter.
Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
It would seem to me that obviously the common denominator between all of those places is, what do they have that bad guys want? What do they have that bad guys want, Cindy, in all of those places?
They want money.
They want money, and if they don't find money, what do they find? Marijuana. Either one. They either have lots of marijuana they're getting ready to sell and turn into money, or they have lots of money because they sold their marijuana. But they have two things. They have marijuana and they have money. And that's what organized crime and that's what gangs look for. That's a target. It would seem to me, and it's simply speculation, but the council has asked the question, is there going to be a change with the legalization? And a lot of it is speculation. The state treasurer is speculating about this very thing. State treasurer is looking into the state putting together a policy that requires the use of armored cars to transport the money, because the state treasurer believes, as does state law enforcement, that it will be a very attractive target for robberies and takeovers and carjackings and shootings. What is the one thing everybody talks about? Cash, marijuana, drugs, or money. So if you're wondering, there's a lot of people just like you wondering about it too. And that was all the way up to the state treasurer. Another issue that the city of Bakersfield solved by outlawing all pot shops is the old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. If they legalized it, and there was 100 legal pot shops, the illegal ones that popped up would be a whole lot harder to figure out where they were. But if they're illegal everywhere, when they come up, not that difficult. I shouldn't think. 40 of the 58 counties in the state of California have wrestled with this very same thing. 40 of them said no. Only 18 counties are going to allow commercial growth or manufacture in the counties. So 40 of the 58 have already said no. And this is something that everybody's talking about. But the connection between crime and violence, degradation of neighborhoods, like you talked about, the negative impact and the crime within the buffer zone. It's not just there, it's around it. It's within, what did you say, how many yards?
300 feet.
300 feet, 100 yards. I know that I was in Bakersfield and I saw one particular corner across street. 3 of the 4 corners had a pot shop. 3 out of 4 corners. You talk about anytime you do retail, you try not to pollute an area. I've never seen a cross street that had 3 McDonald's. I've never had one that had 3 Jack in the Boxes, but I saw one in Bakersfield that had 3 pot shops. And that's where all the crime and that's where all the violence is coming from. There are 2 things they know for certain when they go to those places. There's pot, there are drugs, and there's cash. That's what they want. I want to thank you very much for coming, spending your time and helping everybody here in the city of Taft, not just the people here right now, not just as council, but everybody behind those cameras understand what you've experienced over in Bakersfield.
Okay.
Because that's not conjecture, that's history, recent history.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, and good luck on your run for the District Attorney's Office for County of Kern. I actively support Cindy, and I know her to be a very solid individual and a great prosecutor, so that is my endorsement. Since we're on this subject, and I would ask if the city attorney thought it was all right, instead of waiting for the department reports, there are people I would have to guess that might want to get home. There are 2 other individuals that are going to shed some light on this very same subject, and it would dovetail into the presentation. Would it be okay if the chief of police stood up and gave his department report now? So we just basically put him on the other side of the citizen request public comments. Would that be okay?
That's fine unless there's some objection from the city council, in which case you would actually need a motion to vote. But otherwise, just
I would ask the council if, in the interest of sharing the information on the subject, I would ask that the chief of police give us his story, his opinion, as well as an update on the RMA issue by Lon Boyer, which has a direct effect on this. So
this is moving item 12 up?
2 to 4.
2 to 4.
Department reports.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody have any objection to that?
I don't know.
All right, then. I would ask that the chief of police please step up if you would.
Mr. Mayor, council persons. I felt more sitting back in the background of this. Haven't really said too much about this. As you know, our job is law enforcement. Whatever it is you do, whatever it is our county supervisors do, whatever our state legislator do, we basically clean it up. That's what we do in law enforcement. We follow the law. We don't get to make it. I had a very interesting conversation today with Chief Eric Hurtado at Cal City PD about his very interesting marijuana problem. Some of you have probably seen some of the news headlines over the last 60 days there in Cal City. I want to share with you what I learned. They collected $1.2 million in permit fees. That was cash money. They didn't get to keep it all. $900,000 of it went to their consultants, leaving them about $300,000. In the last 60 days, Cal City's closed down 12 houses with illegal growing operations. It's projected there's at least 50 more that they haven't touched. They've had to pay overtime, 8 to 10 hours for 8 to 10 officers at each house. The cost so far for that's about $35,000 to $40,000 out of their budget, unprojected. They had to buy 4 C trains to house and seize the weed and the grow lights, and it's outstripped their property room space. They expect to buy more. Instead of drug disposal once every other year at Long Beach, which is about what we do, they now are having to do it every month, and that's just more overtime costs for them. While they're busy doing that, case investigations and follow-ups on other criminal cases have suffered. They're spending all the time doing this. They don't have time for the other stuff they really need to be looking at. The grow houses are rented, leased, paid for by fictitious people. The growers at each of these houses are Asian-based illegal aliens who only speak Mandarin Chinese, making it even more difficult to investigate. It looks a lot like human smuggling is being utilized to grow this illegal marijuana. The suspects are passing the electrical meters and they're stealing power off the grid in order to make it look like a normal house. They're just bypassing the grid. So when you look at the electrical grid, it looks normal, but since they're bypassing it for the grow operation, you don't see that until you're actually there inside the house. The suspects are using pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers, and some of them are not even approved in California. And sometimes they are legally dumped on the ground or they wash them into the sewer systems. Kern County Environmental Health used to help Cal City with the cleanup. Now they won't even show up. Code enforcement costs to go after the property owners is yet unknown. They're going to be struggling with this for a while. And again, they have more they have to do, so that those unintended consequences or costs are yet unknown. DEA won't or can't help them. At Cal City, it's the proverbial cat chasing its own tail, literally. Yuba County, if you saw that in the news, recently declared a state of emergency due to the overwhelming illegal pot grows and environmental waste in their groundwater, streams, and forests. 2 veteran Yuba County deputies were shot in November at a church where they were growing weed illegally. Never thought I'd see the day in my 40 years of law enforcement that the governor of the state of Nevada would declare an emergency 2 weeks into their marijuana use, recreational use law because they ran out of weed. Never thought I'd see that. The idea that legalizing marijuana would get rid of the illegal growers is way out the window and gone down the road. It's the most ridiculous justification I've heard yet in this whole darn thing. Here in Taft, we're famous for our football. We have great schools, great college, some really great people. Film industry loves to shoot movies here. First and foremost, we're an oil town. That's our heritage. Commercial weed, is this really going to be our legacy? As your longtime employee and your friend, I ask you not to follow the failure of our state legislature in not considering the unintended consequences of what we will surely face if we allow this to occur. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Question, Chief.
Yeah.
These illegal grows in these homes up there, a dozen homes or more, is that a new phenomenon, or has that been going on, or they just woke up and realized that these were happening, or?
Well, to face the truth, they invited them in. They told them they were going to allow it. So these peoples wanted to get ahead of the game, so they started buying houses, renting or leasing them, set up these grow operations. They don't vent them very well. The houses are full of mold, residue. It's literally out of control over there.
Did you discuss with the chief up there in regards to the commercial grows, the legal commercial grows that they have planned for there? And any issues with
Yes,
the commercial part of it?
Yeah, the commercial ones haven't started up yet.
Yeah.
It's only the illegal ones that are causing them all their trouble.
Well, I understand that.
No, because they haven't started their legal grow operations yet.
Okay. So one of the issues that we had back in November, December, whenever we were talking about and we voted to not allow dispensaries and allow retail and not allow commercial. But one of the things we wanted to look into is how Cal City was doing with their commercial grow, not dispensaries or anything like that, and report back what the states come up with their rules and regulations and those kind of things. So has anybody talked with Cal City in regards to the commercial grow? They started. Are they permitted or are going through a permitted process? Because that's this $1.5 million you're talking about. That's where it's coming from.
I won't repeat the second part of what the chief said. I'll just tell you that the first part was called a cluster.
So the 900,000 went to the
Consultants.
Consultant,
They're
but that's
already in
just
litigation related
that's just
to
the first year.
businesses.
Is that an ongoing cost,
What's that? I'm sorry.
or a one-time cost, or an ongoing cost?
I don't know.
Would you repeat, please, what you said so everybody could hear this?
That there is litigation that's already taken place in Cal City relating to the businesses, directly or indirectly,
And they haven't even opened.
that I understand.
Private party litigation toward the city. Yeah.
Possibly.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Regardless of whether we or anybody else legalizes dispensaries or commercial grow, we're still going to run the risk of having somebody fill a house full of marijuana and grow it. How are we going to work on that here? It's going to happen. Somebody's going to grow more than their 6 plants. Maybe they're going to grow 60 plants in their house. We don't have a lot of manpower. How are we going to enforce that?
I think it's really based on attitude, to be honest with you. If you look at Cal City and you read the news, and most people do, I think everyone assumed that their attitude was they were all for pot growing, no matter how it happened, legal or illegal. I think here, and again, you guys have yet to vote on it, but here I think the voters of the Kern County made it pretty clear, more than the naysayers, is that they don't want it here. And I think if you make your attitude known that you will allow it, you're just inviting it literally to your doorstep and all the trouble that comes with it.
True, and also, you've got the issue of with a state that's extremely lenient towards criminals. So somebody grows their 6 plants and decides to sell the pot to kids. What's going to happen? Are we going to slap them on the hands and give them a $1,000 fine? What are we going to do to these people?
I think Mrs. Zimmer might be able to answer that better than I, but I can tell you right now from talking to Cal City that of the cases that they've got so far, they're misdemeanors. For all that resources that they put out, they're only going to be able to get misdemeanor convictions.
So even when they're selling to children, they're going to get misdemeanors?
I can't answer that one. I'm just telling you that for an illegal marijuana grow in Cal City, they have yet to get a single felony out of any of them. And they put out a lot of resources for that.
Thank you, Chief. We might ask you to come up when we discuss this a little bit later on in the agenda. Okay? I would ask that Lon Boyer, Head of Human Resources, come up. Just for those of you who don't know, to clarify what he's going to talk to us about, the city's insurer, we are a part of an RMA, a risk management pool, if you will, along with 57 other municipalities. So we pool our resources, the cost to indemnify the city and protect the people from litigation, such that we minimize the cost to the community. That's how these things work. One of the critical aspects of anything, if you invite it into a municipality, you invite it into your city. And Councilman Miller has spoken on this in the 16 years that he's been up here on this dais. He used to be an insurance man. That was his job. He's a professional. So every time we would have a contract for any type of services within our city, whether it was for $1,500 or $150,000, he would immediately want to know that are they properly insured? Are the liabilities and the finances of the city safeguarded through the proper insurance? And thankfully so, because that is a critical aspect of doing any type of business, not just government, but private sector business, especially in a litigious society like the state of California. So that's a lead into, I asked the city manager and Lon Boyer, what our RMA felt about inviting commercial cannabis activity and those things that tend to come along with it into your community, regarding whether or not we would be indemnified. So at first we got a response in the form of an email, and it was to the negative, but it was simply a response from a single individual. Mr. Boyer has gone to meet in depth with a lot of people involved in this, and so what he's going to do now is he's going to share what came of those meetings with us, so we have a better idea of the liability issue that would be facing we, the people, we, the city of Taft, should we decide to invite this into our community. So with that, if you would please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor indicated, the RMA is made up of 50-some plus small municipalities. In the south, to Maricopa to the south, up as far north as just south of Stockton, covering the entire Central Valley. Every single one of those agencies has a representative that makes up their board. We have a seat, just like every other 50-plus agencies that represent there have one seat on the board. Back it up, there is a executive committee. That executive committee consists of 3 members from each of the regions, 3 from southern, 3 from northern, and 3 from the central area of the valley. Break that down even further, there's the Memorandum of Coverage Subcommittee. And the whole issue as whether there's coverage or not is in the Memorandum of Coverage, which is updated on an annual basis. Any changes to the Memorandum of Coverage starts with the Memorandum of Coverage Subcommittee, which has 1 representative from the southern, 1 from the central, and 1 from the northern. Now, as far as the marijuana cannabis goes, as you can imagine, with 50-plus agencies going from Maricopa in the south to Stockton in the north, every one of them has a different position on this. And even on the subcommittee, there is an agency who, one of the representatives comes from an agency that has agreed to allow even dispensaries in their community. There is another agency on that Memorandum of Coverage Subcommittee that has come from another place that says absolutely no way, no how, it's not happening. So you even have even the small things, even on that committee level, people that are coming from all different aspects of this thing. Bottom line is today, we have nothing more than what we had when we presented that one statement several weeks ago. In order to get there to be a change in the Memorandum of Coverage, it requires, first of all, the subcommittee meeting, making a recommendation on language. That language then goes through reviews and eventually goes to the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee meets 7 times a year. Their next meeting is in January, they have one in February, they have one in March. The board, which makes up all 52 or 50-plus members, meets 3 times a year. They meet in January, 4 times a year. They meet in, 3 times a year, March, June, and October. In order to get something passed through the Memorandum of Coverage and added to the Memorandum of Coverage, it goes through all those cycles. The very earliest that we would ever see anything change in writing would be the last meeting of June, which would be the last Friday of June. And that's if it happens in this cycle. Chances of it happening in this cycle, I would say, are small. Not to bring anything on any other entity or whatever, the RMA tends to be reactionary and comes up with language as needed based upon things that happen in their communities. The language that we recently dealt with as a result of our school resource officers directly happened due to an incident that happened here in 2013, 5 years ago. The language came up this year and we had to deal with it. So we could find ourselves waiting for quite some time before we have an answer to that question. Bottom line is, as today, we have that one statement from one person in the RMA, and there is no official guiding document to tell us whether we would or whether we would not have coverage in such an incident. And I don't expect that to change until the last meeting of June at the very earliest.
All right, but there was, just so everybody, for the benefit of everybody, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the question. Like you say, there's 50 some odd municipalities, all of which in the state of California are considering what position they're going to take. And all of whom share the liability for the decision made by any of the others. Whether one of the 50 some odd members make that decision, it places all the rest of us at financial risk.
That's absolutely correct.
And so there'll be a great deal of discussion, language drafting, more discussion, and all those types of
You
things.
still have to guess what you might be litigated for. So we may not ever have the answer until the lawsuits come.
So what you're saying is they haven't done anything. They haven't met, they haven't discussed, the law passed January 1, and there's
correct.
been no discussion by the RMA on how they're going to handle anything related to
For the
marijuana.
discussion that I initiated at the last subcommittee meeting, which I went to.
Is California City part of our RMA?
I'm glad you asked.
California City, part of our RMA.
Yes.
Remember, I do not believe they are.
They're not.
They are not.
About Kalinga?
Kalinga, yes, they are.
So they're just going out there, not knowing whether if they have any issues come up, whether they'll be covered or not.
That's absolutely correct.
It's a dangerous place to be. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of expanded on the presentation, but those are other critical points that have a great deal to do with the decision-making process regarding cannabis in any community, and that is why I wanted to ask that those things be shared with you on top of what Cindy Zimmer shared with us as well. So, moving forward with our agenda. Next item on the agenda, item number 2, citizens' request public comments. This is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on matters within its jurisdiction. State law prohibits the Council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. Council may receive comment and set the matter for a subsequent meeting. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. I'll call your name and ask that you come up to the dais, identify yourself, give us your name and address for the record. So please, Mr. Fred Holmes, if you would come.
Fred Holmes, 801 A Street, and we just don't want this in Taft. I think you got ample information what comes with it, and the people I associate with it, we don't need marijuana in Taft. So I just cut to the chase. I hope you don't pass the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, Mr. Ryan Coulter.
Hi, everybody, esteemed members of the council. My name is Ryan Coulter. I am from 522 Petroleum Club Road here in Taft, California. I'd like to start off by saying it's a pleasure and an honor to have Cynthia Zimmer here. Looking into our candidates for district attorney, she is the one who is harshest where it needs to be. So it's great to have you here. I think it's very important that we root out gang violence in every facet of our community, also domestic violence and things of the like. Now, moving on to a few things she said. Most of the things that she said today, I find it disturbing that they don't pertain to what we are here to discuss. And Mr. Mayor, since you, at the last meeting that we had last year, said that you were the one that was inviting Ms. Zimmer here, may I ask you the question as to what was the purpose for her invitation here today? Since we had already decided that amongst yourselves and the ordinance either way, that dispensaries were already out and out of the question. What did her information pertain to today as far as the commercial cultivation?
Well, this is not a question and answer, period, Mr. Coulter, but I'll tell you what. I'll answer that question.
Yes, sir.
As an elected representative of the people of the city of Taft, and as well as a member of this board, we are required, and I would think want to do everything we can to go out and find all the information we can, be exposed. This is not hearsay. This is experience from our neighbors right across the freeway about what happens around cannabis, not just at dispensaries, but around and involving cannabis and the cash business that goes with it. So what is my purpose? in inviting the Deputy District Attorney in charge of gang violence to come here and share information with us regarding her experience in all those things. It's to enlighten this board, this council, as well as inform the people we represent what they could be looking at if we make a decision, because every decision we make will impact their quality of life and their safety. That is the reason I asked her to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. Still, my question remains, how does the criminal activity that she reported in the district attorney's report pertain to the decision, the very difficult decision? I'm not saying, downplaying the difficulty of this decision, withstanding. But how does it pertain to the difficult decision you have to make about permitting a commercial cultivation facility which will adhere to all laws put down as of January 1, 2018? That was my question. Because I'd like to know if by her giving this presentation that she's saying she attributes the same criminal activity to take place or be attracted to a commercial cultivation facility, which has no public access and is lawful in its practice, and it adheres to city-mandated ordinances and state ordinances of the like. And would we anticipate the same illegal operators who open the illegal facilities to obtain their license and operate these said facilities? I stand here as one of the people who proposed to open one of these facilities, and I can tell you I didn't make the cut for the Norteños. I'm a simple businessman is what I'm trying to be. I'm from this town. I'm not trying to downplay the importance of this decision by any means, but I'm saying that as it stands now, we're not talking about dispensaries. We're not talking about gang-related illegal activity in town. We're talking about how our city could possibly benefit from a cultivation facility here in town, and what we need to do to shore up and make sure the people's work and make sure that they are comfortable with the ordinances that you agree upon if it were to operate in this municipality. And as well as Whiting's, the RMA question still withstanding. Whiting gave statistics about California City, and their numbers in population and how much they're allowing of this industry it's alarmingly larger than what we would allow. So I don't know if those statistics, as well as the illegal activity reporting, pertain to the discussions that we're having here today. Anyway, to round it up and to finish my statement, I was just really hoping that we would discuss more so the commercial cultivation and the pros and cons of that, or the crime statistics involved in commercial cultivation, rather than talking about the illegality and the gang-related activity that's not pertinent to the decision being made here today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ron Griffith.
My name is Ron Griffith, longtime resident of Taft. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to all you guys. What I have to say is, having a good heart, and everyone here, all of you, you have the right heart. There's no doubt about that. Ryan, Travis, good heart. They're looking to make some money. They're looking to help the community in whatever way they can. But having a good heart doesn't guarantee that you don't invite a lot of calamity that pertains to the business that you want to open. We all have good hearts. We want to see great things for this community. And as the district attorney pointed out, those type of businesses, they're like turning the lights on, cockroaches go everywhere. And I think you guys really need to think about the calamity you might be bringing down on this community, because you're going to be held responsible for it. We're going to make sure that you are responsible for the decision that you make here. And trust me, if someone gets hurt, or a family member gets shot or killed, or there's someone that gets robbed, or whatever, you guys are all going to stand accountable for it. And we're going to make doggone sure you do. And so there's a lot of other ways to make money. A lot of good ways, a lot of edifying ways, a lot of ways that everybody can get involved in and everybody can back and get behind. But I can't imagine that the city of Taft wants to become a legal drug dealer. It's just beyond belief. And I don't know if you know this or not, but coming down the road pretty quickly, the next 5 years or so, magic mushrooms, the same issue to do with magic mushrooms are coming down the pike. And you're going to be having to make this same sort of decision. I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, did you see yourself 10 years ago sitting here deciding whether or not you're going to have pounds, many pounds, thousands of pounds of dope distributed throughout all of California? You guys, we just don't sit here in Taft. We drive on the highways all over this state. There's going to be thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands over a period of time of dope available. I mean, people grow this stuff in their own house, and they have to go through all the trouble of doing that and all that sort of thing. But when you make it so readily available like this, the consequences are going to be unimaginable. And those consequences are going to lie with all of you. And so it's very important that you really do your homework and make a judgment here with wisdom, because it's crying loud in the streets. I appreciate your time. Think about kids, think about your grandkids, think about our future, please, because this is big league. This stuff we're talking about here is going to have a very negative effect upon our state and eventually upon this community. There's no doubt in my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, Kathy Oren. Dr. Kathy Oren.
Well, you can all just make a sigh of release. I'm not talking about marijuana, so.
Hallelujah.
So, those of you that woke up. Yes, I know I'm kind of sandwiched in here with a very important discussion, and although this that I'm going to talk about is important to me, I'm hoping that I'll find other people in the audience that is it important to. All right, I heard you laughing, Fred. I want to remind you that it is the time of year that we have our chamber installation. It's coming up. We'll be at the Petroleum Club on Thursday, February 8th. The name of this event is Kudos and Cocktails. We've reduced our price because we're going to go informal this year. We want everyone to come and have a good time. The entrance is only $30 per person. And we will be awarding the Business of the Year, the Businessman and Woman of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, and Community Service Award for the year. And we'll be welcoming and introducing our new board members. So we're hoping that all of you will take advantage of this time to come and just have a good time at the Petroleum Club. Yes, Craig?
Is that the Taft Petroleum Club?
That's the only original petroleum club.
Just want to make sure.
That is correct.
Yes, it is the Taft Petroleum Club. It is next door to some people that are pretty important in our community that I won't reveal any more than that, but it's a happening place. So we love meeting at the Petroleum Club because there's a kind of ambiance there that you can't get anywhere else, and we thought it was about time to get back to basics here in town. So we're real excited about that. I want to remind folks that our sit and sips are every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. We have kind of set aside tomorrow because we thought we'd have a lot to talk about as a result of this meeting. So come and have a donut and a cup of coffee, and you can tell us what you think about stuff. We'll listen to you until 10 o'clock. Next week, we're going down to CTEC, which is located on 9th Street. That is part of Taft High School, and we will be in Tom White's classroom getting schooled on the new simulator in the law enforcement class. And I think the folks down there are having way too much fun with this simulator. It cost $1. Have you seen it?
Grant funded.
Did you just say that word?
Pardon me? Did I say something incorrect?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did I do a Donald Trump? I didn't do a Donald Trump. So you've done the simulator?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you do? I'm kind of curious.
Well, once I got sighted in, I did quite well.
Oh. once you got it sighted in.
The gun shoots differently for everybody, and the computer has to have you fire about 5 shots. It sees where you're shooting, adjusts it to center, and then after that, when you shoot, you get what you shoot at. It's like sighting in a pistol, except you're doing it on a computer.
Well, we'll be learning that and many other details about this simulator a week from tomorrow. So come and talk to us about how you think this meeting was. We love those meetings. We get our best attendance at the come and just tell us what you think meetings. And then a week from tomorrow, we'll be down at CTEC enjoying the simulator. Thank you for the chance to talk to you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, council statements, non-action. Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Thank you, Mayor.
first up.
Since we're on to hot topics this week, I figure I want to add to another one. We've had people here talking about the pros and cons and all the different problems we have with homeless people. We've had people with a lot of compassion and people with a lack of compassion here. And somewhere between shipping homeless people off to Timbuktu and giving them a key to the city, we need to start sitting down and getting serious about this. You've got, everybody has an opinion, everybody has no answer. So I just think that we need to start talking about this on a city level here. I mean, if the decisions that we make affect the people in this town, and this is a big decision, and we need to start talking about it. And it's not a good one. There's going to be just as many people as heated about that as there are heated about this. I'm hoping that possibly, and I'm kind of combining two things, that we can put it on an agenda to just start having a workshop and discussing the things that we can do. We can't just talk about the things we can't do, and there are a lot of things we cannot do, including shipping them off to Timbuktu, of course, but we need to start sitting and figuring out what we can do. There are some places that are doing things well. For example, the Needs Center. As Councilman Miller knows, because he's there all the time, I live behind and work behind the Needs Center, and I have so for 6 years. I've never had an incident where they are loitering, where there is, excessive messes. There's the occasional garbage there, but they're in and out of there in a timely fashion. There's not people lingering. They're effectively doing their job for the community. Then we have other people that are trying to do things, but they're doing it in an unorganized fashion, and it's causing problems for property owners, and that's not fair. That's not right. You can't sit there and have a good deed that takes away other people's rights. So as a council and as a community, I think it's time that we start sitting down and really talking about this. And again, this is going to be a heated debate, but we sure do like to get people in the seats, so maybe this is a good way to do it. So
keep them coming.
Keep them coming. So I'm hoping that for a future agenda request that I could add that we might start working on.
I think she's looking for concurrence, gentlemen.
I would concur wholeheartedly.
As would I. Thank you very much. There you have it. All right, next up, Councilman Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a whole lot tonight. I want to make sure that I wish everybody a fantastic New Year's. We kicked it off. I think it's been, 6 weeks since we met last?
Indeed.
I want to thank the council for the birthday present and everyone in the city of Taft for accepting us not having a meeting on the 2nd. It's fantastic turning 34 and not having any city business to complete. So, yeah, we can talk about that later. I think it's obvious that the wait-and-see approach that we're taking as a city is the smart and judicious approach to take, simply because there's an unknown what-if factor that we really have to consider when we start to look at any potential dollars that are coming down the pike as pertains to cannabis. Completely, I wouldn't say opposite of that, but something that's also very important is also considering the legal ramifications and the impacts on city staff and administration and things like that are also incumbent to this process that other cities who have gone down this road are ultimately experiencing now. So learning from their mistakes, not having to reinvent the wheel, but when we get time to put our wheels on, let's make sure things are round and not square. So I think it's very important, very judicious that we take this wait and see and learn approach as opposed to just jumping in to the fire. There was another thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't recall what it was, so I'll leave everybody alone. Hope everybody has a fantastic New Year. Thank you.
If you remember it in the next couple of minutes, we'll give you an opportunity to share that with the community. Councilman Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor. The topic we're talking tonight, and thank you, Mr. Zimmer. You did a great job, and I agree with you totally and everything and all that. But, back in the early part of the century, we had prohibition. everybody drinking alcohol, this and that. It was all normal. And all of a sudden, you had people out there who thought it was bad and evil and started busting a few bottles and a few heads, and then we had no more alcohol for a while. All of a sudden, we got mafia, drugs, gangs, all kind of stuff. Prostitution came in there. They took over that stuff, and we didn't have that issue as beforehand. And then they got back legal again. You got, Kennedy didn't get his money like he used. He got a little bit of money now from his drug, his alcohol stuff, and a few other people got wealthy from it. But we got a lot of Al Capone, all those gang members in there killing people, the Valentine Massacre, all that going on. Then became legal again, and you don't hear as much as far as prohibition. The question I have, is there a correlation or is there an analogy between drugs here where if it does become where it's acceptable, will that cut out the drugs, the gangs profiting from it, and all the ills associated with it? Will that be like normal where it's all regulated and we don't have as much crime as we would because it would be regulated, and the ones that are doing it would be arrested. Like in California City, they find those people doing it illegally, they'll be arrested, or it'll just be more of the same and make it worse. That's a question that you're the expert on, that we rely on, because I'm playing devil advocate. We got this deal here from Sacramento. I'd rather not want to have to deal with it, but we were dealt their hands and cards, and we have to go ahead and come with a decision, what's the best decision and stuff. And ask the tough questions. Yeah, it might look bad along the eyes of a lot of people here because, well, Orchard Park, he's kind of in favor of it, and then I'm going to say Orchard Park is against it. But I'm trying to find the right answer, to make the right decision, the right informed decision. And that's why I ask the tough questions, to get out of people so we all get informed in it. And plus, a lot of cities here in California, instead of a few of the bigger ones, we're shrinking. We're not growing. We're losing things. What's the answer to it? We'd like to get more business come in here. We'd like to get jobs here. But is there an alternative to do it? And that's what we're seeking. What can we do? I don't have the answer. That's why we're looking to you and our citizens here. What is the answer? Do we need to all have an election and vote on it in this town here? We want it or not want it? What do we need to do to get to come up with the right answer? But that's a tough question, and that's what I have to ask. And that's why I kind of make light of it sometimes. It's one way to get people maybe to think about it real hard, because it is a tough decision for all of us have to make. And unfortunately, government intrudes in our lives and our cities and causes problems and stuff. And I had an issue, and I'll light into my agenda request. Is that last Friday my restaurant was broken into, and alcohol was a big part of it. They sold a bunch of alcohol and stuff from there. They had and for a while they had a good time in there. We had full balls of good scotch. They like the black label and blue label scotch. They like that and a few other stuff, and that was pretty good. And so somehow or another they had too good of a time. They knocked over a few bar stools and made a few piles here and there, and they left their cell phone there on the bar. Oh, got their cell phone. And their hat. It's their hat there. And that's a lot of fingerprints. I know who they are. But, that was just the alcohol part of it. But we had a lot of crime and stuff brought on by AB 109, Proposition 47, 57 and stuff. So what's another issue that is, along with the marijuana and the drugs deal, it's another deal brought on to us. That we have to deal with it. That we should not have to deal with it, but we're given a hand, and we're all suffered because of it. What do we do? That's a question I asked before. What do we do and how to do it? And I'm going to ask for a agenda request and see if they'll fly. And we'll start right here, and maybe we can change a few things or start making a change on a few things. But that's all I have. And Happy New Year's.
All right, Councilman Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, we voted to not allow dispensaries, retail shops, and commercial grow on the provision that we would have city staff come back to us in regards to commercial grow from reports from the RMA, reports from Cal City, reports that we didn't have all the complete information from the state on how they were treating everything. And that was what we're going to discuss tonight. So at this point in time, we're not allowing any growing, retail, medical, or anything in the city of Taft, period. So tonight is strictly for information, and we're getting information from all sides. The reason I'm still on the fence in regards to commercial grow is that, I'll say it again, and I keep saying it over and over, we have a 30-day out contract on our CCF out in the, out here on Gardner Field Road. And the state can come along at any time and close that down in 30 days. That is by far our biggest generator of income for the city of Taft. That has put us back into the black, and we're going to, if this stays open, we're absolutely going to have a balanced budget this year. And we were able to buy police cars, we're able to do things in the city that we haven't been able to do in a long time. But now we're losing one of our largest tax generators in the closing of the Kmart, which is not the city of Taft's fault, not the community of Taft's fault. That was a profitable store. It has nothing to do about the city of Taft and not supporting that store. It has everything to do with the economics of of Sears and Kmart and their poor leadership in running those, running that entity and running it into the ground. So what do we do to replace it? And that's what we're looking at as a commercial grow. I'm not, there's marijuana's here in California, and we're not going to stop it. It would have been nice if the state legislators would say, okay, it's illegal. It's legal to have 6 plants grow in your home, but you have to get a permit from the city of Taft, and you have to pay a tax or a fee. That would have been nice. We could get some income off of it. But I don't believe that's a provision in it at all. I don't know if we can.
You can.
We can do that if we wanted to, I suppose. But we haven't, and it's not in our current ordinance. So there's going to be a lot of, not a lot, I assume some folks are going to try it out because now it's legal to do that. So it's finding a new source of income. The Chamber and the City of Taft has gone to numerous conventions that have the major retailers coming that are looking for sources of cities that they can bring their franchise and national chain stores to the communities that can support it. So that's what I worry about. I worry about that 30 days because, frankly, folks, we've got a bunch of idiots running the state of California and that state legislature up there, and they don't care about the city of Taft, and they don't care about this San Joaquin Valley, and they're running us into the ground. So they want to kill our oil industry, and so what happens then? So I'm really concerned about the insurance aspect of it, and Mayor Knorr is right. That's one of the things I always looked at contracts is where's the insurance provisions and is the city of Taft protected? And at this point, it looks like that Arvin and Kalinga and Cal City may be going bare, though, and they're just hoping nothing's going to happen and they're not going to get into litigation. So
we learned the hard way.
Yeah. So I'm for not always being out front. I like to not invent the wheel. I like to see that the wheel's invented and see how things roll down the road, and before we spend our resources to get out there and do that. Getting back to the Kmart, I don't know how big that store is out there, square foot, 30,000?
Square footage.
70,000 square feet?
80.
Huh? 80,000 square foot. I believe the old Safeway store was at least 50,000 square foot. So we got 130,000 square feet of retail space, and who's going to fill it? So we have two big old empty buildings, and who's going to fill it? With everybody shopping online and killing the retail, we're not going to get a big retailer in. So the city's looking at different aspects and working with the current economic
Development
corporation. We've talked in the past about having call centers and those kinds of businesses. So thinking outside the retail sale, or maybe even a distribution. But then again, we have no railroad anymore, and we're 15 miles off the interstate. So it's difficult. But for the naysayers out in the community to say that staff's not doing anything to try to help this community, I'm here to tell you this staff is working very hard along with the chamber and other people in the community to do something to keep this community going. So this was just another look at that source of income, and that's what I was concerned with, and that's why we're getting the information we're getting so we can make an informed decision. I just want to again reiterate, we voted no across the board on no marijuana grow, retail, or medical in the city limits of Taft. So that's where we sit right now. We would have to agendize and have a item put on the next agenda if we were to change that and vote differently. But as it is, we don't have to do anything. And so we're here getting information. So that's where I'm at. So again, don't feel sorry for yourselves for Kmart closing, because we didn't do it. We supported that store, and it was profitable. And they closed a whole lot of stores in a lot bigger communities before they got around to Taft. So that's one thing that we can go out and sell when we're dealing with these people, is that this community supports these chain stores, but, like our J.C. Penney store. It was a very profitable store, and they closed that under us. So it's bean counters in long, faraway places that make the decisions that affect this community, and it's not because we don't support them. So anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I do believe Councilman Bryant remembered that one thing he wanted to share with you all. So before I talk, I'm going to let him do just that.
Well, it's funny you say that because Randy pretty much talked about it all, so I'm not going to bore you all too much. But I think it's important to know, and especially for the folks here, it's important to know the city staff, the city council, and two members who sit on the Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee are working diligently to find ways to bring new business to Taft. And I invite you guys all, February 1st, 3 o'clock right here at City Hall. We're having our Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee meeting. We're full of ideas. We'd love nothing more than for all the folks who've been out there, been through the rigmarole, have grown businesses, started business, come out and talk to us. I wouldn't go as far as saying no ideas off the table, but we want to listen. We want to find something that's going to bring jobs, bring economic viability and stability to the city of Taft. Long before this Kmart says it's going to close, we've been doing that. And long after the new retailer comes in, whenever that might be, we'll still be doing the same to continue to work on behalf of the taxpayers here. So anyway, we're not sitting on our hands, folks, but I really do invite you and I encourage you guys to come to our meetings, reach out to me personally, or any of us here, city staff as well. Because at the end of the day, we want the better Taft that we can see in the future just as much as you do. We don't have all the ideas, and that's why we want to make sure you guys are included. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, you're welcome. Kmart is closing. You guys know that? Everybody up here knows that. Last year, Sears Holding Company, which is Sears and Kmart, closed over 350 stores throughout the United States. In January, another 68 stores are slated to be closed. That's 418 stores. The City of Taft did not close 418 stores. You people didn't. The City Council did not. Has anybody out there in the audience ever ordered anything from the internet, Amazon? Raise your hand. Let's see. Raise your hand. Come on, help me out. I have. Yeah. Well, guess what? We are all part of the change in retail, folks. The internet advent has changed retail forever. Brick and mortar has changed. Years ago, I read a story when the big retailers were coming into small towns. Walmart, Kmart coming into small towns. And this story happened to be a small community in Michigan, as I recall. And it displaced a bunch of small retail mom and pop stores downtown, much like Center Street. But you know what? Instead of just folding up shop and complaining and running off, the retailers there, they decided to do something different. They thought, you know what? You know what we can provide the people of this community that they can't at Kmart, Sears Holding? Personal service. Personal service. That's worth a lot of money to people. I mean, sometimes people are just looking for a bargain, but other times, if the food tastes better, they're willing to spend a few bucks on it. You get that personal service, they're willing to spend a few bucks on it. Sometimes things like this actually represent the opportunity. In that instance, the retailers, the Downtown Business Association got together. What can we do? Why did we lose customers to giant retail? And they did that research, and they went to that big retail store, and they saw what they were selling and what they were selling it for, and they talked to their customers, the customers they lost. What is it you truly want? What is it you're going to spend your money on? What kind of shoes do you want for your kids? What kind of sporting goods equipment do you need? Talk to the Little League, organized sports, whatever the case may be. But you know what? They made it work. They banded together, they recreated downtown, and Walmart closed. Walmart closed. So is this a tragedy, Kmart closing? Well, if it is, then 418 other communities in the last 13 months experienced the same tragedy. 418 of them. Maybe, just maybe, this is an opportunity. There are other smaller, more specialized retail business plans that cater to smaller communities like ours, where it might be some retail and some groceries. And that building, as large as it is, it's been there for a while, folks, and by modern terms, it is inefficient. The cost to run that building and air condition that building and heat that building is astronomical. So it's time for a different business plan. Is it a shame? Yes, it is. Some very good, hardworking folks are going to lose their job, and that is a bad deal. But they just might end up finding a better place. So don't close your minds to opportunity, because this might well be the opportunity that somebody or some bodies are looking for. It could very well end up being better for this community. All right. That's all I have on the Kmart closing. Now then, we're going to discuss this cannabis issue further on the agenda, so I'm not going to comment on it any further. Instead, I want to move forward with the agenda, and that would be department reports. Item number 4, any additional department reports? We've heard from Lon, we heard from the chief. Seeing none, we're going to move forward. City manager statements. City Manager Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no statements tonight.
All right. City attorney statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No statement.
All right. Any of those who haven't met him, this is indeed as identified by the district attorney. Why is it you look just like an attorney? I want to know that.
Yes, so.
He does. I call him Your Honor, as a matter of fact, every time I meet him.
Because you don't have many statements to make, they took your microphone away?
It appears so, Mr. Mayor.
Through Bluetooth, he's connected by his iPhone, though.
At least you got a spot back on the agenda.
Okay, future agenda requests. I believe we got one from the Mayor Pro Tem already. Any additional future agenda requests?
I have one, Mayor.
Yes.
I mentioned, I alluded to my story about the issues we have in Taft is different propositions that AB 109 and Prop 47 and 57. We all got affected by it. You see people come and think, go ahead, thank you. Backyards get broken into, going through the gates, stealing things out of your garages, coming in when you're gone working, people come in your house and steal, but they just know just the right amount so they don't get in trouble. They know not to steal a too expensive item. But if they steal a $100 gun, they still don't get in trouble. If they go there and kill somebody, guess who's liable? The owner of that gun, not the criminal. They shoot somebody because it belongs to you. But I'd like to see that Taft start something. We have a KCAC meeting coming up. We can start with different cities here in our Kern County. Do you have a letter, or we can draft on, make other cities to sign up on it, and hopefully get the Board of Supervisors on it too, to start something to send to Sacramento, or start bringing up our own proposition that we go ahead and repeal those different laws and stuff. We got to start somewhere. We all talk about, we all complain about, but what are we doing? Just talking about it. Nothing's happened. But we need, I'd like to see where we can drop a little letter and send it to different cities here in our county, and start here in our county, and let's see where it goes to. I'd like to.
I believe, and I understand what you're saying, Councilman Cryer, but I believe something to that effect has already taken place. We've already done that, and that was through the League of California
Where
Cities.
were we at on it? Did we do something, or?
We did, and
we
we
supported it, but it failed because there's a process that has to be followed to repeal a proposition, and they weren't able to get enough support.
Well, we can send it to League of Cities, and League of, from our county, from our cities here, then go to League of Cities.
The
Hopefully,
League of Cities was, now that you reminded me, spearheaded something like that.
that is correct,
That was the
and it
vote.
was voted on right here.
Yeah, we voted to agree with the California League of Cities resolution that supported repeal, I believe, of Prop 47.
That is correct.
And that was voted on, and it passed resoundingly, I believe, in March or April of this year at the League of Cities conference.
And now that I'm remembering back, I think there was some direction to the city attorney to figure out the legal process, what it would take to do that.
All right. Well, if we need to do the research, obviously, if it starts right here, that's fine. And
we failed.
We can bring back a report on what happened to that, and is there any efforts, and is there anything we can do?
But we haven't seen it the first time. It's always the second time.
there's another election cycle coming up. So just because it didn't happen, like I say, first time. So I would concur. So let's have that brought forward, if you would.
Reach out to League of California Cities and get a status or a report brought back to the city council.
All right. Very good. Let's do that. Thank you very much.
Another thing I forgot to mention was that, I'll bring it up now, sorry, Mayor, that the Fort is having on the 25th.
Shameless.
Pardon? Okay.
I said some shameless advertising, but that's okay.
I know, but I support things in our town, like our oil museum, our college, the Fort. The Fort is having on the 25th having a membership drive, and if people in the community, especially people who are going to run for office, in the future, or want to know more about our own city and stuff, join these different organizations and be part of the community. The Fort, they need a help because there's a lot of expense involved in fixing the building. It's deteriorating. Need help with membership to get some new ideas for fundraisers. The Oil Museum, they definitely need help in keeping their grounds here fixed up and clean, and presentation to show that our young folks, when they come here for tours and stuff, what our heritage was and still is.
Excuse me, Councilman, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but currently we're talking about future agenda requests.
Oh, I know, but I kind of want to push these different organizations because we need some new members in there.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place to ask for it, but I don't believe our annexation committee of this council has met in quite some time. I'd like to request that meeting happen sometime in the next quarter.
What committee?
The annexation committee. I don't think we've had a meeting in quite some time, so I think it's the time we at least take a look, find out where we're at, and see what the plan is going forward.
All right. Staff can put that on the agenda.
I'll concur on that.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Any others? All right. Moving forward. Next item is consent calendar items 8 through 11. All items listed on consent calendar shall be considered routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the City Council requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Any item removed from the consent calendar will be considered after the regular business items. Are there any items on the consent calendar that any member of the public would like to comment on? Seeing none. The items on the consent calendar are item number 8, the minutes of December 19th, 2017 regular meeting. Item number 9, payment of bills, about $1.2 million worth. Item number 10, update to the alcohol and drug testing policy. Recommendation is a motion to adopt a resolution entitled a resolution of the City Council of the City of Taft approving the drug and alcohol testing policy, City of Taft, Taft Area Transit. Item number 11, recognized obligation payment schedule, ROPS 1819 for July 2018 through June 2019. The recommendation is a motion to adopt a resolution entitled a resolution of the successor agency to the Taft Community Development Agency of the City of Taft, approving and adopting a recognized obligation payment schedule for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, pursuant to the provisions set forth in Health and Safety Code Section 3418G, AB 1X26, and then direct staff to present the ROPS 1819 to the Oversight Board for approval. Do any council members wish to remove any of these items from the consent calendar? Seeing none, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Cryer.
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Yes.
Mayor Nor.
Yes. That passed on a 5-0 vote. I thank you all very much. Next up, item number 12. It's funny, we've been talking about this little deja vu all over again. Update on the Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act regulation. Recommendation here is this for information item only. City Council may direct staff for further action on this item. City Manager Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. On November 16th, 2017, California's 3-state cannabis license authority made available for public review proposed emergency licensing regulations for commercial, medical, and adult use cannabis activity. The Department of Consumer Affairs Bureau of Cannabis Control, Department of Public Health Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch, and the Department of Food and Agricultural Cal Cannabis Cultivation Licensing Division developed new regulations for further define the application requirements, fees, enforcement, and other provisions consistent with MARSA. On December 18th, 2017, the three agencies began accepting temporary commercial cannabis licenses through an online application process. As of January 10th, 2018, only temporary licenses have been issued. There have been 1,104 temporary commercial cannabis licenses issued among the different licensing types. The majority of licenses issued have been for medical cannabis. Only cultivation and manufacturing license database listed show the county that the business is located with, only 18 and 22 counties out of 58 with temporary licenses issued, respectively. A table with a breakdown of licenses issued is provided below.
Okay, this, just for everybody out there, is an exhaustive report. There's a great deal of information. Part of the problem with the information coming out of the state of California is California is always eager to put together a process to gather money. They love gathering money. But whether or not they finish dotting the I's or crossing the T's prior to allowing somebody to give them money is a different story. The rules and regulations coming from the 3 different state agencies that were created in order to oversee the legalization of adult use and medical use of marijuana, they're large and they're still trying to figure out the rules. There are several things that were talked about up here regarding concerns about, is there going to be a parallel between the crime attraction of dispensaries and commercial grows? I told you that the state treasurer has already contemplated, and there's information out there about the requirement of using armored cars for the transportation of the cash, because it is a cash business after all. That hasn't been laid to rest yet, nor have the details been worked out. One of the details in the fine lines here says that if you're in the distribution business in cannabis, they only want you to haul no more than $3,000 worth of your product at any one point in time, because they know it's going to draw criminal activity. So one of the rules that the state has come up with is you can only move $3,000 worth of your product at a time. Now, if you move any type of commercial product, the more product you can move in bulk, the less you move it for. It doesn't matter if it's oil in a tanker or if it's beets on the back of a refrigerator car or it's marijuana. If you are required and limited by law to only move $3,000 worth at any one point in time, and you want to move $30,000 worth, that means you got to make 10 trips instead of just putting $30,000 worth in a vehicle. But it is a smaller, less attractive target to fewer bad guys. That's the reasoning behind the state's requirement. And like I say, it's one of the rules here. Another thing that I found buried in here, which I found really interesting, was that if you are going to open a cannabis business in the state of California and you just want to apply for the license, but you anticipate having more than 20 employees, you are required to produce a PLA or a labor peace agreement. If you don't have it in place, you have to have a notarized document that says you will comply. So whether or not your original business plan dictated such, the state has said, with their current, the newest, latest, greatest information coming out, if your business is going to employ over 20 people, you're going to be union and you're going to have an agreement with a union. Now, if you are the producer of black market cannabis, the more taxes and the more fees and the more money connected with the growth and distribution of legal commercial marijuana, the happier you are. The more it costs to produce an ounce of legal licensed marijuana is the more money you as a black market producer can charge for your black market product. People ask, well, if we legalize it, does it go away? Well, quite frankly, history has told us no, the opposite is true. If you look at the states that have done this, if you look at Colorado and you look at the fact that they were sued by 3 bordering states, and you look at the fact that in last year's budget, they put an $18 million line item in their budget to fight the black market that is burgeoning in the state of Colorado when they legalized everything to do with marijuana 5 years ago. Well, if legalizing it makes it disappear, and they've done it for 5 years, and yet they just now had to put another $18 million in their budget as a line item to fight the burgeoning black market, that would tend to make you believe that that's not true. So these are just some of the things that in looking at all of this information coming forward are somewhat discouraging. Also, the state of California, because they're not ready, they talk about putting all these things in place in steps, in phases. 3 or 4 phases, because they're not prepared to enforce all of these things right now, so they're willing to circumvent some of the standards that they said they were going to put in place with the packaging and the things that will discourage the use of marijuana products by the youth. But because they can't put it all in place right away, they're willing to phase it in for the next 12 months. Well, is it important or is it not? So, and these are just things that I drew out of these documents that were provided in the staff report, and I would welcome comments from my peers here regarding their views on the same review. So, ladies and gentlemen.
I think you covered it pretty well. It's kind of hard to do anything without duplicating.
Like Councilman Miller said, Councilman Bryan said.
I have no comment.
All right. And earlier, he said it's kind of a wait and see approach. The unfortunate reality is, and 40 counties of 58 are going to wait and see. If you read this, has anybody ever juggled lit firecrackers? You ever done that? You ever juggled lit firecrackers? Well, why not let this firecracker blow up in somebody else's hand? Okay? Why do we need to jump in the middle of this fracas? This will play out. Things will be changed. Already, what was adopted by the city of Taft is going to have to go back before the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission is going to have to adjust their adopted language because the state of California has changed it. It's already going to have to go back. This is going to happen multiple times over the course of the next 12, 16, 18, 24 months. And unfortunately, a lot of it is going to result in litigation. Those people who are willing to jump out there and stick out their necks in order to try to chase those few percentage points, they're going to be facing that litigation. Last year, the state of Colorado, after 5 years' experience approving everything related to marijuana, all things coming into their state treasury, the gross inlet to their state treasury from all things marijuana was about 0.5% of their budget. 0.5%. To take a risk in a small community like ours that quite frankly could break our financial backs for something like that, I truly believe the people up here in this dais are much more responsible than that. I certainly hope so, because it's for your good that they are. At this point in time, based on all the information that is in front of us, and the experience that we have been shared with by Cynthia Zimmer, by the police chief who has interviewed the people of Cal City, the police chief in Coalinga who has been dealing with this, says right there in our staff report, if you think or you're taking this on to try to solve any budget woes, don't do it. That's a direct quote from the police chief in the city of Coalinga. He's not that far away. His conditions are not that different than they would be in the city of Taft. That is also what the governor of the state of Colorado said. I think we should listen to them. Why do we reach out to people like Cal City and Coalinga in the state of Colorado and Cynthia Zimmer? So that we as a city council can try to make an informed decision with all the information we can drag out of the world. That's our job. That's what we do.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your passion in regards to this matter. But it does not mean that we can't come back to it. And we have an ordinance in place that does not allow it. And all we have to do is turn the switch somewhere down the road. And we can do that. So, again, we're on a wait and see and go from there. So your comments tonight are your comments.
Indeed.
Indeed. Okay, thank you.
I do have one quick question, just to make sure we're all very clear, because this came up earlier. It appears there was a little bit of confusion. The ordinance as drafted cannot and does not prohibit someone growing their legally allowed amount of 6 plants within their home, although we do have the provision in our ordinance currently that they have to come down and apply for a permit through the planning department, correct?
That's part of it.
Currently?
Correct, that is a part of it.
As
I
it
don't know
stands
what the
today.
permit
That's correct.
obligations are.
Okay.
The planning director might know that.
Well, and what the
You're going to notify the building department. The police department's going to know who's growing it and for what reasons. And it
what's the
says-
penalty
and it
if you get
says
caught one way or another?
Admin fines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're very clear on that. You want to grow in your own house, do what you want. Your
Most of it has
constitutional right according to the state of
most of it
California is you can grow it. You can smoke it recreationally.
Most of it has to do with safety. We don't
Yeah.
want people adding electrical to their house for these grow lights and burning their house down, their neighbor's house down. We also don't want them growing plants in living areas that are designed for their kids to live in, and we don't want kids to be able to be housed with plants that they can eat and get sick. So it's
Yeah,
kind
and
of a public safety.
The state statute requires that it not be infringing upon living areas, eating areas, restroom areas, things sort of like that. So our ordinance mirrors that, right?
There are also nuisance pollution issues
Correct.
as far as the vapors and the smell and the waste stream and all those other types of things. So yes, when we adopted our ordinance, which says no to all commercial activity,
And retail.
we have to respect people's right and legal right at this point in time to grow the 6 plants if they are an adult within their house, but they have to come get a permit. And the reason for the permit and the oversight is for the safety of not only those individuals, other people who could occupy that same house, as well as their neighbors, as well as the community overall. So that is correct. That is part of our ordinance as passed in effect right now.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone was clear on that.
All right. Any other comment? Okay. I want to thank you all for being a part of this evening's meeting and the sharing of information. Always nice to see faces out there and opinions in the audience. At this time, this council is going to go into closed session.
That's closed session.
That's a part of. That's closed session.
But don't we have to make an announcement?
No, at the beginning I already did.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Excuse me, everybody. Please, as a part of the record, I have to.
Wait a minute, please.
Okay. At this time, this council will go into closed session. Item A, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code section 54956.9A, Cilantro versus City of Taft. Item B, conference with real property negotiator Craig Jones, city manager, government code section 54956.8, APNs 031-060-11, 031-060-10, and 031-040-17. And then finally, item C, conference with labor negotiator Craig Jones, city manager, Government Code Section 54957.6, all units.
And the other?
And special item.
Here.
Special item A, conference with real property negotiator Craig Jones, city manager, Government Code Section 54956.8, APN number 031-050-25. Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of session.